from the Palace at Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California. Welcome to a special New Year's Eve edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for all your workers' compensation, employment, and labor law matters. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be with you for the next hour with some talk, some news, and hopefully some answers about work comp matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your work comp matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in with your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send an email to wcexaminer@aol.com. You can be old school and send a fax to 818-475-1437. With me in studio, my right-hand man, Mike Zyma, my protege, Robert Ozeron, 45-year attorney, John Scalia. On the board is Scott from Uncle Studio, and back at Work Comp Central, making sure the whole damn thing goes right, is Jake Harris. Well, welcome everybody to a special edition of Work Comp Matters, the New Year's Eve show. And of course, what's even more special, as we said in the opening, is rather than being halfway across the world in Munich, Germany, I want to give a warm welcome for his first inaugural time to Uncle Studio to Mr. John Scalia. And John brought his fan club with him, too, so we actually are performing before a live audience. John, it's great to have you here. And what do you think of Uncle Studio, which the first time we walked in, Mike aptly named The Palace?
It's deceptively modest.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And, of course, as always, let's see. You normally prepare your segments. You record them. You send them to me. We get them on towards the start of the show. But now you've actually taken notes, and you're going to do your segment live. And that will be coming up in a little bit. But now, before anything, it is the New Year's show, and we can't do a New Year's show without champagne. So let me quarterback this. Mike's got the bottle of champagne, and now he's going to sort of turn a 90-degree angle to make sure it doesn't go near any microphones. And he's trying to decide exactly...
Or any eyeballs.
Yeah, and he's trying to decide how to open it.
Have we won the World Series or what? This is obviously some very expensive champagne.
Okay, and he's got a grip on it, and now he's turning it, and it's almost open. Come on, Mike. I know you can do it. And there it looks like it's open. So if you can go ahead and just start pouring.
You could add that cork popping sound in post, I'm sure.
Yeah, we can order that.
Because I'm sure everybody was waiting for that, and then it didn't happen, and it was super anticlimactic.
Okay, so Mike
so
is
skillfully.
Mike has poured my glass or my cup. And now he's pouring a cup
Robert,
for
you did not
John.
want some.
Robert is feeling under the weather.
Yeah,
he's not going to have any. I know at least one of our live audience members wants a cup. So come on up and get a cup. And Scott is actually working right now, so he's going to be drinking his cold tea or whatever he has. Okay, going to need to pour one more cup there for yours truly. And let's see. We'll do some type of toast here. This is to thank you guys very much for contributing to Work Comp Matters. As everybody knows, about a year ago, I had a handshake agreement with Work Comp Central. Never thought we'd actually be doing show number 52. And here we are. Not only are we doing show 52, but we've been renewed for another year. So this is really to say thanks a lot. Thanks for the contributions. And what a great 2017. So Happy New Year, everybody. And you're not, we'll clink in post-production. There you go.
There you go.
And boom. And I'm going to take a sip of my champagne.
Prost.
That is wonderful. Thank you very much. So, of course, I give these guys the topic in advance, and they, decide to... Oh, I forgot. Of course, we've been brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the planet, give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guaranteed $1 a day. A1 Law. And, of course, if you want those hard-to-get, front-row, sold-out concert, sports, or theater tickets, give Brian at Santa Monica Tickets a call at 310-395 8587. So, anyways, I give the guys the topic, and the topic was just Happy New Year. Now, I don't know if everybody's going to talk about what they did during this year, what they plan to do next year, what they do in the Happy New Year, but of course I wanted to recap what we've talked about, what was of interest, what the talk news, and hopefully some answers was during the year. So, specifically into workers' comp, we had, of course, talk about opioids in the workplace. I really think that was one of the number one stories because it was not only in workers' comp, but it was also in California, and it was also nationwide. Of course, we had stories on work comp fraud, and John actually chimed in great. And when we were talking about work comp fraud, he was saying that really it's all a bunch of blowholes and all a bunch of nothing, and really is not really that big a deal. Of course, we talked about the off-duty Orange County and San Bernardino sheriffs that were in Las Vegas. They were part of the first responders and responders, and then they were denied work comp benefits. That was a big story here on Work Comp Matters. Of course, in December of last year, we had the City of Riverside employees in their yearly party, and there was a terrorist act going on there. And that terrorist act, one of the first shows we had at Work Comp Matters, I interviewed the applicant attorney who was complaining that her clients were not getting a lot of the treatment, the psychiatric treatment and other types of treatment that they needed. It was being denied by utilization review. And that story actually affected some change because I believe there were some amendments in the either rules and regs or the California Labor Code specifically because of that incident where first responders or people injured because of a terrorist act are going to get a little bit extra special and deservedly so treatment than the average employee here in California. And then, of course, we started naming all of the doctors that were suspended because of Senate Bill 1160, and we just constantly got lists of doctors coming out like every other week. We just started naming how many people were suspended. I mean, I think we're at like 100, 110, 120, whatever the case may be. Then, of course, we talked about the homeless. We also talked about cyber attacks affecting our computers. Of course, we talked about marijuana becoming legal January 1 of 2018, and I think we even have a news story on that tonight. We talked about the Las Vegas terrorist shooting. We talked about the California fires, and we have a news story on that tonight. We talked about the anti-Civil War statues being torn down because they were offensive to people. Naturally, we always talk about Donald Trump. I was really anti-talking about Donald Trump when we started in January, February, but he just seems to creep in no matter what state you're in, and it's of interest. I mean, I coined the phrase for this show, water cooler talk. I mean, we are not legal advice, and we are certainly not the end-all. As I say at the start of each show, we are some talk, some news, and hopefully some answers, and it's water cooler stuff. If you're working at a corporation and you take a break, you meet people at the water cooler, hey, what's going on? We had some stories about North Korea, specifically missiles that they were shooting off, as well as being responsible for some cyber attacks. We, of course, talked about all of the hurricanes. We talked about how guns are, once again, with all of the terrorist attacks becoming political. We started off talking about Black Lives Matter when that was first going on in January. And in my opinion, the biggest news story of the year, and you guys can feel free to disagree if you want, Robert's commented on this many times, is the Me Too movement. Now, you may recall this started off, if I'm not mistaken, on the inauguration of Donald Trump, when he was being inaugurated in, I believe, January 20th of this year, over 1 million women in the United States and across the world were mobilized at least in the United States, in 420 different locations. And, of course, this was all prior to the Harvey Weinstein thing.
I also think it was prior to the hashtag.
Prior to the hashtag.
Yeah.
If that's a joke I didn't get. Oh,
No,
you mean
no,
prior
no.
to the hashtag Me Too. Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Then Harvey Weinstein comes out in the middle to the second half of the year, and then all of the women start coming out and talking about either being assaulted or sexually abused or sexually hassled
Or raped.
And I said right off the bat, there's no question that every woman, every female, at least once in her life, has been sexually harassed to some degree or another, and that came to fruition. And in my opinion, this was the biggest political story of the year because it not only involves so many people, clearly half the population, but also the repercussions of that, be it positive or negative. Look at how many people, without a trial, without any type of jurisprudence, just volunteered to resign. Bill O'Reilly was one of the first.
Steve Lauer.
Mr. Lauer was there.
Is it Matt Lauer?
Matt Lauer.
Okay, yeah.
Congressmen, senators, assembly persons, state senators. This Me Too movement happened really quick, really fast, and I just I think it's a wonderful thing because it happened without violence and it happened without destruction of person and property.
And I think that
Yeah.
you have to, if you take the gender issues away and you take the sex away, which of course, obviously, everybody loves talking about sex, but if you take the sex away, what we're really talking about here is abuse of power.
Correct.
And
Absolutely correct.
I think that's an important thing. And so it happens to be in a sexual context, but the bottom line is we're talking about an abuse of power. And I think it's a good thing to hold the people with power accountable as to how they use it.
And in addition to that, it's clear with all the payoffs and the secret non-disclosure agreements that the companies have been breaking the law for many years because, as we all at this table know, if you receive any type of complaint of sexual abuse by man or woman, sexual assault, whatever, if you don't do a complete and thorough investigation, you are breaking the law right there. So the laws don't need to be changed. They just need to be enforced.
And to go back in time, way back when I represented one of the major studios in L.A., we had a case that involved a top executive who was accused of abusing his power in a gender-related issue, okay? And the file came over to us from the studio, and this was from the top, which said, get rid of the case. We don't care how.
And we don't care how much.
That's right, because he's one of our top guys, and we don't care that he's doing this. Basically, those are the instructions. Okay?
And did you settle the case really quickly?
Well, we did, yeah. We
And
did what we had to get rid of it. Clearly, yeah. I mean, it was a huge client, a huge studio, and
Robert, don't you wish you could have been applicant attorney on that case?
Well, yeah, that's why you don't want to shoot too low. They always say that my demands are too high, but they might say yes. So you don't want to shoot low, all right? Shoot high and have them talk you down.
John, did you settle that case for a lot of dough? I know it was a number of years ago, but do you remember?
I think relatively speaking, back in the time, it was a fair amount of money. Yeah.
And the perpetrator stayed on the job, I assume.
Oh yeah, that was the whole purpose of settling. Yeah, because he was well thought of as for doing his job. And so they didn't care what he did with his job outside the job.
And speaking of John Scalia taking care of business, as I've said many times before, he lives halfway around the world in Munich, Germany, but he's still got his bar card after 45 years. And I don't know what he's going to talk about now because he's not tape recording it. He's in here live and studio with his peeps listening. Without further ado, 45-year attorney, Mr. John Scalia.
Hi, folks. Well, I've lost the Alps this week. The topic that was sent to me was Happy New Year. And, of course, Steve loves doing this because he wants to put us on edge and to figure out, what are we supposed to talk about?
You're damn right.
So the first thing I did, as I usually do, is I Googled, the origins, the etymology of Happy New Year. And lo and behold, Google gives me an article from a theoretical physicist. Yeah, believe it or not. And so he's talking about time, because after all, you're wishing somebody a Happy New Year, implying that there's something happening in relation to time. Time is passing. There's a new time. Well, it turns out that physicists debate as to whether or not time is real. Some of them say time is an illusion, including, by the way, Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein once wrote a condolence letter to one of his acquaintances who had lost a friend who was a friend of Einstein's. And this is what he said about the death of his friend. He said, "This is not important for us who are convinced physicists. The distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, however persistent." So Einstein subscribed to the theory that time was an illusion. Now, there are other physicists who say, no, time is real. I mean, it goes on and it happens, and things happen in time. Okay, so that's the debate. And then there were the guy who wrote the article said, well, maybe there's a compromise position, which is that, it's not really real, but it's important in the sense that, let's think about the real world. For example, when you start a moon program and get somebody to the moon, do you want the physicist to say, time is an illusion? Not when you want to get them there in 10 years. No, you don't want that answer.
Or want to come back.
Yeah. And what about a physicist who's writing a book and the publisher says, your deadline's coming up, and the physicist says, what's a deadline? Time's an illusion. So obviously, in terms of operating in the real world, we have to assume, for some purposes, that time is real. On the other hand, if you go to things like philosophy and theology, you're going to find that they too say time is not real. In philosophy, of course, that's where the debate starts. And they say, there's plenty of philosophers who say time is an illusion. Again, when you're getting your PhD and they say, okay, your thesis is determined, is due by a certain date, what are you going to say? It's an illusion? Not going to do it? I don't think so. And we go to theology. Theology is interesting because most religions believe that God is, quote, out of time, meaning that God is somehow in a dimension in which time does not exist. And if you think this is a modern concept, think again. If you read the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the sacred works of Hinduism, there's a great discussion between the warrior and God as he's about to go off to battle. And he says, God, I'm about to go off to battle against people I know, people I love, and I'm going to have to kill them. And God says to him in reply, he says, I'm God. I'm out of time. Your battle has already happened. So whoever you kill, it doesn't matter because they're already dead. And that's an interesting theological perspective on it. And again, to get to the real perspective, what if you say, well, Pastor, when are the worship services? And he says, well, time is irrelevant, so we're not going to post any times for worship services. That ain't going to work. So the reality is we have to deal with time. So anyway, Happy New Year. Now, the other thing I thought was, well, okay, we are supposed to be a legal show of some sorts. So maybe I should talk about bills that are pending in the California legislature for the next year. And I found a couple that were interesting. One is AB 570, which says there should be no apportionment to pregnancy, childbirth, or any conditions relating to pregnancy or childbirth. That's interesting, and for a variety of medical reasons, which we can discuss. Another interesting bill is AB 680, which I found fascinating. I have no idea who proposed this bill. But it says, any study by the Commission on Health and Safety and Workers' Compensation should be submitted for a public hearing to discuss the purpose and design of the proposed study. Now, that's interesting because I always say, well, what kind of model did they use? What kind of control group, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, those are the two bills that are proposed in the upcoming legislature. So we can talk about it later, but that's the view from Van Nuys today without the Alps.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, very good, very good, very good. Comment on time. Most astrophysicists believe that the Big Bang occurred approximately 13.7 billion years ago. Yet we can look into a telescope right now and at a minimum see galaxies as they actually were at least 10 billion years ago, because as we know, it takes time, multiple light years to get here. So the sun, if I'm not mistaken, the light from the sun takes 8 minutes to get to the Earth, and it's 90 million miles away. we can see galaxies that are multiple light years away and see about 10 billion years back into the future.
I was just learning to read back then.
It's great to have you here in the studio, but now I think it's time for some news. Without further ado, he's my right-hand man. He keeps me in check and out of trouble about 90% of the time with the first news story of the day, Mr. Mike Zyma.
Thank you, Steve. California legalizes marijuana for recreational use Monday, but that won't stop feds from seizing the drug, even in tiny amounts, on busy freeways and backcountry highways. Marijuana possession still will be prohibited at 8 Border Patrol checkpoints in California, a reminder that state and federal laws collide when it comes to pot. The U.S. government classifies marijuana as a controlled substance like heroin and LSD.
I'm always trying to explain to Europeans the difference between federal republics and the democracies they have. They really have no conception of the power that states have in America to legislate and to control a lot of things that are not controlled by the federal government. So it's always interesting for me when that arises.
It's the 10th Amendment, right?
Is it the 10th?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would like to discuss the difference between the feds and the state, their authorities and powers and laws, but it's time for a musical break. We'll come back with some more talk, more news, hopefully some answers. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. But here's our first musical break. He, of course, is a friend of the show. Without further ado, Mr. Glenn Laughlin and the Cherry Blue Storms with Baby, You're a Rich Man.
How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? Now that you know who you are, what do you want to be? And have you traveled very far, far as the eye can see? Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? How often have you been there? Often enough to know. What did you see when you were there? Nothing that doesn't show. Baby, you're a rich man. Man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do.
Glenn Laughlin and the Cherry Blue Storms. Baby, You're a Rich Man on Work Comp Matters 52. Mike, can you believe we're at show 52?
It is extraordinary.
Oh, my goodness. Just unfrickin' believable.
Well, like I said before, I mean, in the beginning, I was worried that we were going to run out of topics, and we have not even scratched the surface.
That's right. That's right. John brought up an interesting point about states' rights, federal rights. You didn't say it. but Democratic liberal principles versus Republican conservative principles. I know growing up, I was always taught that Republicans basically wanted to leave the states alone, let them make their own laws. For example, the death penalty, drugs, traffic traffic laws, and such. Democrats, abortion. Democrats want to federally legislate over the states. Who
Well,
wants?
John was more talking about republics rather than Republicans, but the
go
dichotomy
for
you're
it.
talking about is right, though.
Go for it. Go for it.
No, I was just trying to explain because Europeans really don't understand how much power states have. For example, with the climate accord agreement, okay, Paris Climate Agreement, I'm explaining to them that there's already been like 14 states that have said we're going to abide by it, regardless of what the federal government does. And I point out to them that among the states who are going to abide by that accord are California and New York. And by themselves, California is the 6th largest economy in the world.
Still.
Yes, and New York is like the 20th.
Although some people say when Silicon Valley falls out, it's going to change, but that's
never
another
gonna
story.
happen.
No. And I mean, they said the same thing about, well, okay, to put that in perspective, when you and I were much younger, you remember the aerospace industry in Southern California was huge.
Huge.
It's gone.
Yeah,
It's gone.
yeah.
Well, California is still the 6th largest economy in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think our location makes it desirable to live here. It means it
Absolutely.
attracts employers, right?
And in fact, going on what you're saying, our Attorney General, Xavier Becerra, I believe, he has threatened to sue Trump and the federal government because of the issue with the illegal immigrant thing.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of suits that are going to be
Yeah.
brought. But regardless of whether suits are brought and regardless of whether they're won, the states do have the ability to abide by the Paris Accord. And they've said they're going to.
Well, John, does Germany have states? I assume Germany has states, right?
Well, this is my point. Yes, they have. In fact, I live in Bavaria, and it's called Freistaat Bayern, meaning the Free State of Bavaria. And I just chuckle when they say that because it doesn't have the same power, the same ability to legislate. If a law comes out of Berlin, Bavaria cannot alter it or cannot say, we're not going to do that. And that's the difference. So if Berlin said, for example, we're pulling out of the Paris Accords, the Bavarian government couldn't say, well, we're going to abide by it. I mean, they could, but it wouldn't mean anything. Okay. Yeah.
Now, of course, the question that's been asked many times here on and off the record, so you're here. What the hell are you doing halfway around the world, man? What's going on? I mean, you don't like the United States? Why are you living in Germany? Come on, we all wanted to ask that question.
Yes, we have.
So go for it, buddy.
Oh, dear. That's
Be careful.
That's actually the most common question I get asked in Germany, especially when they find out I come from California. They say, you came here for the weather, right? Obviously, I mean, the real answer, if you want me to, the answer I give to all the Germans is the truth. And when I first got there, one of the few sentences in German I could say was, Ich bin politischer Flüchtling, which means I'm a political refugee. And I left because I did not like what I saw happening in America. Now, this was 4.5 years ago. This has nothing to do with Trump, okay? I mean, I think Trump's making it worse, but, that has nothing to do with Trump. And so I left because I did not like what was happening to the middle class. I did not like what was happening to American society. I did not like any of what was going on. And so I chose to go to a country that was socialist and a country where I'd have to learn a frickin' difficult language.
All right.
But you did, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And we can talk more about that later. The wildfires that have swept through California have led to numerous complaints about landlords drastically raising prices or evicting tenants to capitalize on rising demand. This has prompted Governor Jerry Brown to impose a 6-month ban on rent increases in excess of 10%, while Attorney General Xavier Becerra has warned against all forms of price gouging.
A deadly California wildfire, which has destroyed more than 700 homes in California, is now the largest blaze in the state's recorded history. The Thomas Fire has burned more than 1,000 square kilometers, an area greater than New York City, Brussels, and Paris combined. The blaze broke out in Santa Paula in early December, and the cause still remains under investigation.
However, Mike and I have spoken, and there are rumors abroad. And who do we suspect is really the cause of these fires, Mike?
Well, the scuttlebutt is that it's Southern California Edison for failing to maintain their power lines or maintain the distance between tree growth and brush growth and the power line.
And we know that they are, I believe they already admitted some fault for some fires that occurred a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
In Santa Rosa, they're still fighting that. Of course, that would be PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric.
Okay, well, for the first time in Work Comp Matters on Show 52, John Scalia, you've got the next news story.
Cal OSHA is advising employers affected by the wildfires that they must protect their workers if the working conditions include harmful exposure to wildfire smoke. When outdoor workers are exposed to air quality that is designated unhealthy, very unhealthy, or hazardous by local air quality management districts, employers are required to provide filtering respirators, such as masks labeled N95 and certified by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH. These masks filter at least 95% of airborne particles, but do not protect against gases or vapors. The masks are available at county emergency operations centers. Please refer to the Governor's Office of Emergency Services Wildfires webpage for updates.
So if someone gets sick because they're working outside because they've inhaled some noxious fumes or whatnot, and the employer did not provide them with the gas masks, that's a slam dunk, serious and willful case.
Yep, I agree.
Well, a violation of a statute or a code is I think, S&W kind of by prima facie, right?
Well, it's sort of like when using.
It's res ipsa loquitur.
Okay. well, it's like a ladder. It's like a ladder, for example. The aluminum ladders that are upside down V's. Those ladders are not allowed to be used just like a straight up and down. You have to open them up and make sure that the bracket in between is set. And that is safety. In fact, OSHA has been coming down all this year on ladder safety, like gangbusters. If an employer is aware that their employee is using the ladder in an unsafe manner and does not instruct the employee to do it, and you're able to prove that what I just said is a finding of fact, that's a slam dunk S&W. It's the employer's responsibility to make sure their employees are acting in a safe manner. Correct, John?
Absolutely.
Mike, I think you've got the next news story.
Bad breath can have a whole slew of causes, ranging from the relatively bland, like the horseradish you just ate, to the life-threatening, like liver disease.
Does champagne give you bad breath, Mike? I'm
in
sorry.
trouble if it does.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Please continue.
But for some unlucky souls, bad breath, or as it's known medically, halitosis, has a more simple, primal, difficult-to-cure explanation. Genetics. Researchers at the University of California, Davis, have now identified a gene mutation they say could be a root cause for that kind of bad breath, according to a new study the researchers published on December 18 in the journal Nature Genetics. Recent research carried out discovered that sulfur-based compounds are common in the breath of those whose halitosis runs in the family, according to the UC Davis researchers. Right now, there's no treatment for the kind of bad breath that's passed down from your parents, the researchers said. But with more research into this gene and mutation, that could change.
We'll get back to some more talk, some more news, and hopefully some answers on Work Comp Matters number 52. Happy New Year. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the planet, give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guaranteed $1 a day, A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get sold-out front row concerts, sports, and theater tickets, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets at 310-395-8587. We'll be back with me and the gang after another musical interlude by Susan Scheller.
I sold my soul, I can't get it back. I've fallen down on my lonely track. Something inside is dying to break free. I got chains for wings used to be. I long to break free from this lonesome jubilee. I feel so scarred, it's gone by this party's policy. Yeah. You know, if I could change my ways, maybe I would change today. I got chains, the wings used to be. Going high up in the sky. Don't worry, my life ain't gonna pass me by. It's the end of the road, my lonely road of dreams untold. I got chains where wings used to be. And just the other night, you know, I found myself talking to Jesus. I whimpered, why do I changed? And he said, you're gonna ride for free as long as you stick with me. I've been down, but it don't bother me, no. You know I had me some chains where some wings used to be. And he told me just like this, you're going high up in the sky. Don't worry, your life ain't gonna pass you by. It was looking like the end of the road, the lonely road of dreams untold. You had chains, the wings used to be. Hang on now. You're going high up in the sky. Don't worry, your life ain't gonna pass you by. It's the end of the road, your lonely road of dreams untold. Ain't got chains where wings used to be. I don't mean to sound corrupt, but I've fallen, now I can't get up. I don't mean to sound depraved, not a straight line to my grave. Chains where wings used to be. I got chains where wings used to be. Something inside was dying to break free. I had chains where wings used to be. I learned you gotta keep changing. Take it from me.
The folk rock sounds of Susan Scheller, and she was kind enough to appear at the Van Nuys WCAB when we did the show number 26. Probably one of the worst shows we ever did all year. At least I thought it was one of the worst shows. Technical difficulties, problems setting up. I lost money on it. It was okay, that's the most important thing. I lost money on the show.
Well, a lot of the subject was Van Nuys, so maybe it was the subject matter. I don't know.
Just horrible, you know. And I don't know if we'll do another live show again. I'm just so comfortable here at the Palace at Uncle Studio. And in fact, hey Scott, why don't you come over here for a minute and grab a mic? Walk away from your just come on over for a second. No, I just want to know what's the update on the Uncle Studio surviving next year.
We'll be knowing more next month.
Okay, if you can please keep me updated, and I will announce it. I know I put on my Facebook that we have the potential red line or the zone or the train or whatever coming through, and they're going to take it away. And I want to do everything possible to keep us here because we like it here.
Well, I've been here for 39 years. I'd like to make it 49 years.
All right, very good. You can go back to your mixing board now. Thank you, Scott. In all seriousness, if you want a great place to record, if you want to meet a really nice guy, very flexible, fantastic post-production, Scott from Uncle Studio, he is the man. Next news story, it looks like I got it. Speaking of Donald Trump, the Trump administration has publicly blamed North Korea for unleashing the so-called WannaCry cyber attack that crippled hospitals, banks, and other companies across the globe earlier this year. The attack by Rocket Man was widespread, cost billions of dollars, and North Korea is directly responsible, according to the Tom Burchett, Homeland Security Advisor to President Donald Trump. The United States government blames the hacking entity known as Lazarus Group, which works on behalf of North Korean government for the WannaCry attack. The Lazarus Group is also widely believed by security researchers and United States officials to have been responsible for the 2014 hack of Sony Pictures Entertainment. Before Robert gets to the next news story, definitely hacking, cyber attacks, cyber security was a huge story this year, bigger than it's ever been. I mean, we had so many. Uber was hacked. The election allegedly was rigged by Russia, and just hacking is starting to become a regular thing, you know?
Well, it's not surprising. All governments use the weapons at their disposal to disrupt whatever goes on in the homes of their real or perceived enemies. I find it interesting that whenever the administration finds it useful to believe that an attack came from somewhere, they believe it, like North Korea, because North Korea is a bogeyman.
Well, isn't perception reality?
No.
Oh, okay.
However, when it comes from somebody that they're not so convinced is an quote enemy, they don't believe the same sources that they're relying on for this. So they don't believe the FBI, they don't believe the CIA whenever it's convenient for them. But when it is convenient, then they believe them. I think they should make up their mind.
Robert, you can either give an opinion or just go right to the news story.
I think you're right about the hacking being more prevalent. It's probably also more prevalent than people know, considering most hacking is not disruption of networks. It's actually stealing information covertly. So a lot of people could be currently hacked and have no clue, right? So most of that is unreported.
And if I'm not mistaken, 30% of the emails and 30% of the Facebook members are fake people. They're developed by hackers to get further information on you.
Now you sound like my ex-wife.
Yeah, I think that's probably the individual hackers out there. As far as the government is concerned, I
wasn't referring to the government.
I kind of just assume that the NSA has been watching and hearing everything I've said since birth, and I just operate that way. Honestly, I got nothing to hide anyways. Might as well. It's pretty boring sometimes.
Do you think they can spy on you with your cell phone?
I'm sure they're listening to this podcast thinking this is what I got assigned to.
I think that's great. I hope
especially
they spread
the one
me
where
all
you
around,
asked me why I left.
Well,
yes.
Well, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
I'm pretty sure this is the only one that they ever heard. They got Johnny here back from Munich. They're thinking, what is this guy up to? You know, we better listen into this podcast, and then they pick up you, me, and Mike, and now we're becoming subjects of investigation. So I got to really go home and start putting the tinfoil hat on. You know?
Exactly. You've got the next news story, my boy.
All right. The holiday season's demands on the retail, packaging, and shipping sectors elevate workers' compensation risks, and experts urge those who hire seasonal workers or expect their employees to put in overtime to plan early and wisely. Seasonal workers pose a risk, as they are not always trained effectively and as often as regular workers. With new people, you always run the risk of shortchanging them on training and safety. Also, 35% of U.S. workers feel more work-related pressure around this time of the year, according to a recent survey conducted by Account Temps, a Menlo Park, California-based finance staffing firm. This can lead to a spike in workplace injuries.
What do you guys think about temporary employees and full-time employees for 2018? We just had the new tax law put into effect. The corporate tax is being lowered from 35 to 21%. The hope is, first, that more business will stop leaving the United States and will come back to the United States. But also the hope is that the businesses will filter down or trickle down some of that money to their employees. What's your take about, well, firstly, how the new tax law will affect unemployment, and any comments on full-time employees and part-time employees? Just whoever wants it, go for it.
Yeah, I think this will be an interesting topic right now because we all, I mean, he said he was socialist, and John, and we're talking taxes now, and, you're sitting around a table of capitalists on, I know a little bit under the weather for myself, but I'm quite the capitalist in my own head. And
I've been able to ascertain that just even listening from Munich.
Yeah. And so I think that this will be an interesting topic. As far as the taxes and what I've seen as an applicant's attorney, I represent, a lot of people.
Are you
don't speak English.
incorporated now?
Well, I'm a sole proprietorship.
You are a sole proprietor.
I'm a sole proprietor. I'm a pass-through entity, as they say. It's very common for IRS.
I just became familiar with pass-through when this new tax was put through. I, of course, was familiar with passive income, but I just became familiar with the term pass-through. And everybody has been telling me, if you're a sole proprietor like I am, and you receive pass-through money like I do, you have to become an LLC. Have you discussed that with anybody?
Because the rate is lower, Steve?
It's because of the tax rate, yes.
Yeah, you need to talk to your tax person. I mean, this is stuff all beyond us, or at least me.
Are you planning to incorporate next year or no? You haven't decided?
I haven't decided that.
You're going to speak to your accountant and
yeah,
work it out.
Whatever the tax benefits are. I have a couple employees, right? A lot of deductions. We're operating a business day to day. But as far as what I feel on the street here, I know John may have a different opinion out in Munich about the attitudes, but here, people seem to be pretty excited. I mean, I also trade American stock, right?
Yeah, we know that.
And, that's been going great. And there is a general attitude of optimism now, I must say. Maybe it's an echo chamber. Maybe it's just me. But my business is growing. I feel like the insurance companies are kind of loosening up, paying the injured workers.
Well, the economy is booming, correct?
Yeah,
especially in California.
This gives them a windfall.
Well, the stock market has hit highs 40 times this year or
Stocks
something.
are at a high, taxes are at a low. They're going to increase. I mean, this is the good time should just
Unemployment
while it's hot, we should
arguably is at a low.
Yeah.
Arguably.
While the iron is hot, we should strike. We should just try to reap in profits and make America as rich as possible, and we'll help everybody out when we're as powerful as we can be.
John, I can give you a minute to comment right now. We then got to go to music and then Mike's segment, but take a minute and you can respond to Robert.
I would just say first thing is that there's no question that the stock market's gone, it's great guns. But that happened before the tax reform, so I don't think the tax reform is relevant to what the stock market's doing. Secondly, as I told you earlier, I personally had no objection to lowering the corporate tax rate to get in line with the rest of the world. And thirdly, I don't think there's any real evidence that businesses have been leaving America to go anywhere else. Yes, jobs have been outsourced, and that was due to various other policies. Correct. Okay.
Yes, you're correct. Go.
And I don't think the overall effect of the tax change is going to be much, to be honest.
And we haven't really touched on any type of repatriation of money, I think, is what the issue you talked about is, right? A lot of bank accounts that are offshore supposedly hold billions of dollars of these American corporations, of American dollars, right? Of products purchased by Americans, made and manufactured often by Americans.
And nothing in the tax law is going to make them do it. I mean, if you're really concerned about that, then you pass a law that says repatriate your money. This is the law. But to go ahead and disguise it as tax reform rather than saying, no, we're going to pass a law that's going to accomplish the purpose is deceptive.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure they actually even touched on repatriation yet. I haven't figured out the details specifically. I know they talked about the individual rates, the pass-through rates, and all of the deductions that are going to be increased. I think they're going to double the standard deduction for, married households?
Yeah, that's right. It's going to go from 12 to 24,000. One thing is for sure, people with real estate holdings, major real estate holdings, are going to benefit more than anybody else. And who has major real estate holdings? I don't even need to say his name, okay? We're going to be back with more talk, more news, and hopefully some answers on Work Comp Matters 52. Happy New Year. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. But right now, he was one of the stories. I didn't want to say he was one of the top stories, but he was with me for 40 years, and I can't believe now he's gone. Tom Petty and The Last DJ.
Well, you can't turn him into a company man. You can't turn him into a whore. And the boys upstairs just don't understand anymore. Well, the top brass don't like him talking so much, and he won't play what they say to play. And he don't want to change what don't need to change. And there goes the last DJ who plays what he wants to play and says what he wants to say. Hey, hey, hey. And there goes your freedom of choice. There goes the last human voice. And there goes the last DJ. Well, some folks say they're gonna hang him so high, 'cause you just can't do what he did. There's some things you just can't put in the minds of those kids. As we celebrate mediocrity, all the boys upstairs wanna see how much you'll pay for what you used to get for free. And there goes the last DJ who plays what he wants to play and says what he wants to say. Hey, hey, hey. And there goes your freedom of choice. And there goes the last human voice. And there goes the last DJ. Down in Mexico, and sometimes it'll kinda come in, and I'll bust a move and remember how it was back then. And there goes the last DJ who plays what he wants to play and says what he wants to say. Hey, hey, hey. And there goes your freedom of choice. There goes the last human voice. And there goes the last DJ.
He's my right-hand man. He keeps me out of trouble and in check at least 90% of the time. Without further ado, in his segment on Happy New Year, Mr. Mike Zyma.
Thank you, Steve. The coming of the new year connotes many things like new beginnings, resolutions, and the like. One thing I just have to tell you, if you ever get a chance to play Santa Claus to young children, go for it. But if you do, take it seriously. Most of the young ones still believe in Santa Claus, so be Santa Claus. This means be jolly. Note, the laugh is written ho, 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 but that's not the way to do it. Rather, ho, 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 ho.
There you go.
Take a bit of time with each child. Don't necessarily ask what they want for Christmas. Just say hi to the kids and be nice. Above all, just really play Santa. The experience is magical. I play Santa every year to a group of kids up to 16 years old. Obviously, the older kids don't believe in Santa, but it's still fun to engage them. You believe in Santa, don't you? Christmas passes, and in comes the new year. I generally don't do resolutions, but perhaps I should. Then again, why wait for the new year? In my advancing old age, I'm usually in bed by midnight. I enjoy taking in the college football games on New Year's Day, although the matchup between USC and Ohio State will take place on Friday, December 29. Happy New Year, everyone. Be good to each other.
And what type of New Year's show would be complete without some New Year's resolutions? For me, it's nothing new. I want to continue to make the relationships that I have, both personal and business, better, more trustworthy, and of course, more profitable, and do everything I can within my means, both by time and financially, to create newer business and personal relationships. Robert?
I kind of want to go on a vacation to a tropical island and
Well,
just
you
lay
deserve a
around.
vacation, my boy.
I'll be unrealistic with you. I just want to do like a senoritas and margaritas type of tour. You know what I mean?
Senoritas and margaritas.
I've been
I
working
like
real
that.
hard.
Oh, yeah.
I built a business. I've done this all on my own. It's time to relax.
Well,
for
when
a
was the
bit.
last time you hit the road, Robert?
Well, I did go to a trip to Korea in 2016, which was real
South
fun.
Korea, I hope.
Yeah, South Korea, not North. I made it back here. Okay, I didn't even get close to the border, but yeah, that was for a music festival of odd things. But that I work with some people who are in a band, you can say, and I got the honor of being their guest, and I needed a trip. But that's my goal, is just take a real vacation, not like an adventure trip, just one where I lay back, hopefully don't get too sunburned, relax, and just come back refreshed.
Well, I can highly recommend Hedonism 2 or Hedonism 3 in Jamaica, if you've ever heard of that. And if you haven't, you give it a shot. And by the way, if you need someone while you're gone to crack the whip to your employees, I am your man.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. They're pretty good. They administer themselves very, very well.
All right,
and plus,
good.
I always have the computer. I'm not too far.
There you go. John?
I'm with Mike. I don't make resolutions, so I'm just going to go keep on plodding on. Besides, I don't believe in time anyway. So
Yeah. Okay. All right, Mike, you don't believe or you do?
I just feel that it's kind of an arbitrary date to start or stop something. I just want to be a good person,
Well, that's great. That's good.
You shouldn't start on New Year's Day.
So another year out of jail is your resolution. Okay, one more year.
On parole.
Yeah, I haven't done there so far, and might as well keep it going.
He's on parole at Work Count Matters. Well, we unfortunately have come to the end of another fabulous show, the end of another fabulous year, and who knows what 2018 is going to bring us. Anybody have any burning desires for closing thoughts? Robert?
No, I just want to say thanks for being here, John. Are you going to be with us in the future?
no,
So one-time thing?
yeah.
Oh man, we didn't even really get to go at the socialism thing. Oh well, next time, right? Well, something to look forward to.
Absolutely. John?
Yeah, I just want to add something. I know I sounded very clinical when I talked about why I left the United States, but let me tell you, it's not easy. And when I do talk about it, there's many times when I get choked up. Okay, so it was a hard decision, and I do love America. I mean, I love the country I grew up in. I'm grateful to it. I wouldn't be where I am without it. And so I never badmouth it, because that would be stupid and hypocritical.
And I wouldn't allow you to continue to be on the show.
No, we were talking about just the political differences we could discourse. I mean, I'm sure it'd be fascinating. Plus, I feel like you could actually keep your temper when you discuss an idea. We've had previous people here who couldn't do it, and what do they say? The first person to lose control loses the argument, right? Something like that.
The first person that loses control loses the argument. I've not heard that one before.
Oh, now you have.
Yeah. That
Actually, I like it.
No. Yeah, I like it. And for my closing, firstly, I'd like to very much thank my protege, 5.5-year attorney, Robert Ozeron. It was 5.5 years ago that he came to apply for a job as a legal assistant, making $15. I was paying him $15 an hour. Now he's an applicant attorney. He's got his own business. He's got his own shingle out and employees that he's responsible for. Hasn't taken a vacation in years. And when I offer my free help to crack the whip, he says, "No, boss, that's okay. They're all under control." So that's fine. Thank you very much for contributing here to Work Comp
Thanks for all
Matters.
your help, boss. I couldn't do it without you.
Well, you could, but it's nice of you to say that.
Right. Well, you're very astute as well. So you're sharp as ever.
Oh, I do my best. For John Scalia, who I've known for many years, and I was telling John earlier today, I still remember the time that we were at a lien trial. It was me, him, 7 other lien claimants. The judge said, rather than having 9 different people cross-examine, let's pick one person to do it. All the other lien claimants looked at me and said, let's have Appel do it. And I looked at them and I said, thank you very much, but I think Scalia should do it. And Scalia did it. And prior to starting his cross-examination, the judge said, okay, it's now the lien claimant's representative's turn. Scalia looks at the judge and says, Your Honor, so many words, I didn't go to law school and practice law for 30 years to be called a lien claimant's representative. I am an attorney. And I just chuckled underneath my breath, and I thought that was really funny. To my right-hand man, who in all seriousness does keep me out of trouble and in check over 90% of the time, I have told him, Mike, if I ever step out of line at the office, in the show, you feel free to let me know. Hey, that rhymes, man. Not bad. For Scott on the board, this is like, I don't know, our 30th show with them. Thank you very much, Scott. I love your perfectionism and your style. You are the consummate professional. For all the good people back at WorkComp Central who continue to support and approve of this project, including but not limited to Leaf File and Jake Paris, my name is Steve Appel. We will see you on the next edition, on the next year, next time on Work Comp Matters.